friends. I am Dr. Pankaj Anand and I am going to discuss this very important issue today. So you've taken a decision that you are going to mechanically ventilate a patient. He is suffering from acute respiratory failure and you tried everything else. You tried oxygenation, you tried FNAC, you even tried non-invasive ventilation and nothing seems to be working. And this is the stage where you seriously contemplate starting invasive mechanical ventilation. So you intubate the patient and you are now planning to set the ventilator, or you are setting the ventilator before intubation. So what is important, what are you going to do? That is what I'm going to discuss over the next few minutes. We all know that when you and I normally breathe, we breathe with a negative pressure ventilation. What I mean is that we increase our intrathoracic volumes, so we create a negative pressure within our lungs so that air pushes in. You remember that air always moves from an area of high pressure to an area of low pressure. Now, most modern machines, most modern ventilators work on a positive pressure principle, whereby the patient positive pressure is created, which creates a pressure gradient, and the air then is literally, you can say, pushed inside the lungs. Now this is against the normal physiology, and that is why we many times find situations where the patients tend to fight with the ventilator and everything else. Now gas, as you know, always moves from a higher pressure to a lower pressure, and these ventilators create a pressure gradient from the airway, which in these cases is endotracheal tube, to the alveoli, and this pressure gradient is called as the trans-airway pressure. Now, if you look at a mechanical breath, a breath given by a mechanical ventilator, it can be broadly divided into four parts. The first part is the beginning of inspiration. By this we mean that the exhalation valve has closed and the machine is now pumping in air into the individual through the endotracheal tube, and this process is called triggering, which we will discuss later. The second step is inspiration. In the inspiration, flow is being delivered from the endotracheal tube to the alveoli. This is followed by termination of inspiration. Your exhalation valve opens, the expiration or exhalation begins, and this process of changing from inspiration to expiration in ventilator parlance is called cycling, and the last part is exhalation. Now, mechanical breath has four properties or four parameters. The first is the volume. Usually when we talk about volume, we talk about the tidal volume which is delivered. Then flow, this is the flow which is actually delivered into the airways and the lungs. Then the pressure, and largely the pressure gradient that is induced by the lungs, by the ventilator, and lastly the time, which we will discuss later. Now, ideally a ventilator can either control the pressure or the volume, but both these parameters cannot be controlled simultaneously, even though we will be talking about certain modes called dual modes where you can try this, but for all practical purposes either you can set the pressure or the volume. Now if you look at the classification system of ventilators, there are broadly three properties. First is the initiation of inspiration. As I said, it is the triggering. So your breath could be a pressure triggered breath or a flow triggered breath or a time triggered breath. So what we mean by this is, now how the breath is initiated. In cases of pressure triggered breath, what happens is that the pressure comes to a particular level and the ventilator senses that breath and gives the breath. The flow comes to a particular level and then the breath is given by the machine. And time triggered is obviously when a particular respiratory rate has been set, and at that moment, at that time, the machine gives the ventilation. Talking about limiting, now limiting is a variable which does not exceed the set level, whatever the condition of the lung. So you have set a pressure limit or a flow limit and time limit. Your lung might be good or bad, but that particular parameter is limited here. Third and very important is the termination of inspiration, what I called earlier also cycling. So your breath could be a pressure cycled or a time cycled or a volume cycled or a flow cycled breath. Now if you look at the initiation of mechanical ventilation, what is termed as triggering. Now triggering, as I said, is the beginning of ventilation. So it could be a triggering which is purely by the patient's efforts. So in this condition, whenever it could be a pressure triggering or a flow triggering. So in a pressure triggering, what actually happens is there is a pressure in the circuit or a pressure is there and the patient makes an effort, an inspiratory effort. So the pressure goes down and the machine senses this fall in pressure and gives a breath. So this is a pressure triggered patient effort breath, and these patient effort breaths are called assist breath because here you are actually assisting the patient and he is triggering on his own. The other is the flow triggered breath, where again when the pressure pulls in air, there is a fall in flow. The machine senses this through a sensor present within the machine, which you can set the sensitivity levels, and it is a flow triggered breath. The other breath is the timed breath. So here there is machine does not sense any patient effort and all the breaths are given by the machine at the rate that has been set by the operator, and therefore this is a controlled breath. But for all practical purposes, in most patients we give an assist controlled breath where there is an option. If the patient is making enough effort, then the patient triggers the machine, but if the patient does not make the right effort, then the machine actually triggers the ventilator. So it is patient or time or breathing. Now this is a very important graph. This is a pressure versus time graph, and there are two breaths shown here. The first breath, which is in blue, you will appreciate this is the triggering. So here there is a patient triggered breath where the patient is making an effort, and since the patient has a negative pressure ventilation, so patient pulls in air, so there is a downward deflection at the beginning of the breathing. So this is an assisted breath or a patient triggered breath. However, the second breath, which is depicted here in yellow, you will appreciate there is no such downward deflection because the machine has not deciphered or seen any effort on the part of the patient, and the machine is giving its own breath at the rate that you set it. So therefore it is a time triggered breath or a controlled breath. So this is the difference between an assisted breath and a controlled breath. Now coming to cycling, as I said, cycling is the termination of inspiration. It could be a volume cycled breath where the inspiration stops when a particular preset tidal volume has been delivered. It could be a time cycled cycling or time cycled breath where inspiration is terminated when the preset inspiratory time passes. It could be a flow cycled breath where inspiration is terminated when the flow comes down to a particular set level from a higher level. Or it could be a pressure cycled breath where inspiration is terminated when the preset pressure is reached. Now, as I said earlier, there could be a volume controlled ventilation, there could be a pressure controlled ventilation, and in some cases there could be dual modes of ventilation. Now, what are if you look at the volume targeted or volume controlled or even volume ventilation, you actually here give a prefixed tidal volume which is constant, and the patient receives that tidal volume in each breath, and since the tidal volume is guaranteed, you have a better control on the PaCO2 level. But there is a small catch. You can set the flow patterns here. So it could be a constant flow of air, or it could be a starting from higher, and a descending flow pattern can be used. Remember, in pressure ventilation only descending flow is available. So in constant flow pattern, the delivered volume, the inspiratory flow rate as well as inspiratory time remain constant. So what varies in volume ventilation? Obviously the pressure varies. And how does it vary? So it varies as per the airway resistance and the compliance of the lungs. So if the resistance of the airway is high, remember how the pressure is generated. Usually the airways have a tendency to collapse on their own, right? So when an air passes through a collapsible tube, that the walls of that tube put a pressure, and that is the airway pressure. So if the airway pressure is high for any reason, say for example COPD, you will have a higher pressure. Similarly, if the lung compliance is low, then obviously the pressure would be. So in a volume targeted ventilation, what you set is the tidal volume, the respiratory rate, and remember, minute volume is nothing but tidal volume multiplied by respiratory rate. And then you set the inspiratory flow rate, or you could set the inspiratory time, or the inspiratory time percentage, or the inspiration expiration ratio, or the IE ratio, depending on what particular model, what particular make of a ventilator you are using. They have different options and different things. Now, what do you monitor in volume ventilation? Obviously, you monitor the pressures, and the pressures that you monitor are the peak inspiratory pressure, the plateau pressure, the transairway pressure, and alveolar pressure. What are these? I'll discuss again. But remember, peak inspiratory pressure, the name itself indicates when a tidal volume is being delivered, there is a definite increase in the pressure, and that reaches to a particular highest limit, which is termed as the peak inspiratory pressure. Now, if at the peak inspiratory pressure, you suddenly hold the inspiration for some time through a, most modern machines have an inspiratory pause button or an inspiratory hold button. So the pressure comes down and stabilizes at a particular level. Now remember, if you are doing an inspiratory pause in such a patient, the exhalation valve has not yet opened. So what will happen is there will be no gas flow, because there is no, you held the inspiration and you have not opened the expiration valve. So there is no gas flow. So there is no gas flow, the pressure in the airway as well as the alveoli becomes the same. So this pressure is the plateau pressure, also termed as the alveolar pressure, right? And then there is the transairway pressure, which is largely the difference between the PIP and the plateau pressure. A word about compliances. Dynamic lung compliance is nothing but tidal volume divided by the difference between the peak inspiratory pressure and the set PEEP. And the static lung compliance is the tidal volume divided by the difference between the plateau pressure and the set PEEP. And since, as you know, peak inspiratory pressure is always higher than the plateau pressure, so the static lung compliance is always higher than the dynamic lung compliance. Now this is a very important graph which is actually showing you the components of the inflation pressure. On the y-axis is the airway pressure, and on the x-axis is your time. And as you'll appreciate, at the beginning of the inspiration, there is a sudden rise in pressure, which then just becomes the rate of rise in pressure becomes a bit less, but it reaches a particular peak when your tidal volume is being delivered, and this is termed as the peak inspiratory pressure. Now, if you were to hold this inspiration here by a maneuver called the inspiratory pause or the inspiratory hold, usually done for 0.5 seconds. So your pressure comes down and stabilizes here, as I said earlier. The exhalation valve has not yet opened and inspiration is stopped. So the pressure within the alveolus and the pressure in the airway is the same, and this pressure is termed as the plateau pressure, also termed as the alveolar pressure. Once the inspiratory pause is finished, the expiration begins, your exhalation valve opens and the pressure comes down to 0. Now, we'll definitely learn the more details in further lectures, but this peak inspiratory pressure is usually raised, increased peaks in obstructive lung diseases like COPD. So if you are going to take a look at the graph of a COPD patient, he'll have a particularly tall peak inspiratory pressure, but the plateau pressure remains the same. So your transalveolar pressure, which is the gap between the peak inspiratory pressure and the plateau pressure, increases in obstructive lung disease. However, in a restrictive lung disease like ARDS, the problem is with the alveolus, and since the alveoli have a problem, so there is an increase in the alveolar pressure or the plateau pressure. So the plateau pressure tends to go up. The gap between the PIP and the plateau pressure might not increase significantly. The plateaus will be high in a restrictive lung disease. Now, what about pressure targeted or pressure controlled ventilation? As I said earlier, it is the pressures that are limited. So your peak inspiratory pressure and alveolar pressure would be limited. So the delivered tidal volume therefore then depends on the condition of the lung. What is the status of the resistance provided by the airways? What is the lung compliance? How much effort the patient is making in inspiration and what pressure you set. So since the pressure is set and limited, the tidal volume and hence the PaCO2 become the variables. So you set the inspiratory pressure, you set the respiratory rate, you set the inspiratory time, and you closely monitor the exhaled tidal volume. Now the flow and tidal volume, as I said earlier, are not guaranteed. So your tidal volume depends. If your lung compliance is good, your tidal volume would be good. However, if your airway resistance is high, your tidal volume would be low. So your tidal volume is directly proportional to the lung compliance and inversely proportional to the resistance of the airway in a pressure controlled ventilation. Now, an important thing that we need to set in pressure control ventilation is also the alarm, especially the low volume alarm, or some people also call it the low minute volume alarm. When this is activated, it actually verifies the disease. So in increased resistance or decreased compliance, this alarm would be working. And we usually set this low volume alarm at around 100 ml below the ventilating volume. So depending on the type of ventilation, if it is volume ventilation, we set the tidal volume or the minute volume, the respiratory frequency, the inspiratory flow rate or the inspiratory time, or the inspiratory time percentage or the IE ratio. We set the high pressure alarm, the low pressure alarm, and obviously the FiO2 and PEEP. In pressure control ventilation, we set the pressure levels, which usually are set at less than 30 centimeters of water. We set again the inspiratory time or the inspiratory time percentage or the IE ratio. We set the respiratory frequency. We set the low volume or low minute volume alarm, and we set the FiO2 and PEEP. Now the problem with volume ventilation, what problems could occur? Now if you are using a constant flow and your patient is also making his own efforts, there might be dyssynchrony in the patient's breath and the machine's breath. This can many times cause a trouble. There could also be inadequate flow delivery leading to breath stacking and an auto PEEP generation, which might increase your PaCO2 levels. If your tidal volume set is high, then you could actually injure the alveoli, especially because of over distension in patients with acute lung injury or ARDS, causing barotrauma and polytrauma. In pressure ventilation, the potential problems include that the limit that pressure you set, it is not delivering enough tidal volume. So this could lead to hypoventilation and increase in PaCO2 levels, or if the pressure is too high, it could actually damage leading to the barotrauma. So we've discussed all the theory part. Now you have the patient lying in front of you, probably sedated. You have intubated the patient, and now you are going to set the ventilator. So what are you going to do? You'll first think about the control variable. You could use the volume control or you could use the pressure control. Remember, initially full ventilatory support is provided by volume or pressure assist control mode. Volume control is used in majority of patients, but if the pressure is high and there is a risk that they might cause barotrauma, then you can use the pressure control mode. But just remember one thing very, very clearly. The best mode for you is the mode that you are familiar with. So when your patient is critical, you're putting the patient on a ventilator, don't experiment on him. Whatever mode you are comfortable, happy, about which you are familiar, use that mode. Now coming to volume control ventilation, the initial parameters to be set include your tidal volume, your respiratory rate, your inspiratory flow rate and pattern, the PEEP and FiO2. The tidal volume is calculated using the ideal body weight, so you do not use the exact body weight, you use the ideal body weight, and the formula for which are available on Google, even the write-up associated with this presentation. The set tidal volume varies with the underlying disease. So as I said earlier, in ALI or ARDS, we usually, restrictive lung disease, we usually go for lower tidal volumes like 5 to 6 ml per kilogram of ideal body weight. But if you have obstructive problems, you might go for higher tidal volume. In pressure control ventilation, initial parameters that need to be set are the pressure, the respiratory rate, the inspiratory time, and of course the FiO2 and PEEP. You need to titrate the set pressure with the tidal volume that you actually want. If the tidal volume being delivered is less, change the pressure accordingly, but the plateau pressure should ideally be kept lower than 30 centimeter of water to prevent barotrauma. The respiratory rate is set to target the desired minute ventilation, which is actually the product of tidal volume and frequency. So if I am handling a patient with CO2 narcosis, probably I'll go for a higher respiratory rate as compared to a person who does not have high PaCO2 levels. FiO2, initial FiO2 is usually set to 1 or 100%, and then you go for an ABG for after half an hour or 45 minutes of ventilation, and you document an adequate oxygenation and correction in the ABG settings, and you might then have to titrate the FiO2 levels to a lower level. PEEP, initially I use a rule of thumb. I start the ventilation by a PEEP of 5 centimeters of water, and then I titrate it as per need, the response and the disease. So ARDS, obviously 5 for PEEP is not enough. You will have to go for a higher PEEP. If it is an obstructive disease, probably I need a lower PEEP, probably I don't even need a PEEP. So PEEP again has to be titrated. A word about the dual modes of ventilation. They are said to combine pressure and volume ventilation in one mode. They try to exploit the beneficial effects of both pressure and volume ventilation. They improve the patient-ventilator synchrony, and they also try to prevent the ventilator-induced lung injury like barotrauma and volume trauma. Various are available. I'm not going to discuss them in detail in this presentation. They will be taken care of in the subsequent chapters. So there could be pressure augmentation, volume support, pressure regulated volume control. There could be adaptive support ventilation or adaptive pressure ventilation. So to summarize, there is no mode that is perfect. So you need to choose that particular mode which you are happy with. Remember, this is all a dynamic management. So always individualize as per your patient, as per the disease requirement. You do not ventilate a COPD patient as you ventilate an ARDS patient. So you have to individualize. Obviously, initiation is the easier part. The more important part is the monitoring. So you need to monitor very, very closely after you have initiated ventilation, how the patient is responding, how the disease process is responding to your ventilation, and always keep an open mind. Be ready to change if you are not able to achieve the target that you wanted to achieve. Thank you.